The Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Isn't St. Paul a hoot, by the way, that 1 Corinthians reading? I'm not preaching on that, by the way. Three simple words. One profound and dangerous invitation. Come and see. Words spoken by Philip to Nathanael, echoing Jesus' own words in the scene just one day before, as he calls Andrew and Simon Peter, the first of his disciples, on the heels of questions and murmuring about his identity. As if to ask, "You want to know who I am and what I'm all about? Come and see." These words are an invitation to discipleship and what it means to follow Jesus. From its very beginnings, the Christian life is meant to be one of active participation. To be a follower of Jesus means to get involved, to show up, to roll up our sleeves, to be engaged, to love our neighbor as ourselves. Faith active in love, as our namesake reformer Martin Luther called it, or in the more contemporary words of Cornel West, justice is what love looks like in public. This weekend, as we again call to mind the life and ministry of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., commemorated on our Lutheran church calendar as a martyr and renewer of society, I also can't help but be reminded of the countless other civil rights leaders who stood alongside King in the work of justice. Bayard Rustin, Ralph Abernathy, Rosa Parks, John Lewis, Ella Baker, to name just a few. Less well known, perhaps, though closer to our own Lutheran world, is the name Robert Gretz. Gretz, who was born in West Virginia in 1928, graduated from what is now Trinity Lutheran Seminary in Columbus, Ohio. In June of 1955, and newly ordained, Reverend Gretz was called to serve as pastor of the majority Black Trinity Lutheran Church in Montgomery, Alabama. It was barely 6 months before Rosa Parks would be arrested, sparking what ultimately became the Montgomery bus boycott. Gretz urged his congregation to fully participate in the boycott, and he himself organized carpools and became a shuttle driver for as many as 50 people every day. Most notably, perhaps, Pastor Gretz was also the only white clergy person to publicly support the boycott. Despite his best efforts, he failed to rally the support of his fellow white ministers and even the wider white population of Montgomery began to distance themselves from Gretz and his family. Tensions came to a dramatic head the following summer, just over a year into his first call, when his house was bombed for the first time. Even after the boycott ended, a second bomb detonated on their front lawn while Pastor Gretz, his wife, their children, and his mother were home. Like King and the other civil rights leaders of his day, Pastor Gretz faced harassment, death threats, and violent attacks in the course of carrying out his ministry. And still, Gretz was white. He could have easily had a comfortable life. He could have walked away. He could have chosen, like the rest of his fellow white clergy, to stay out of it all. He could have turned down the call to Montgomery altogether. Instead, he chose to throw aside that comfort and to risk his own safety and security to do what he knew was right and what had to be done. Gretz took his call not only as a pastor, but as a disciple of Jesus seriously. And he did what the gospel demanded, no matter the cost. What does it mean to follow Jesus? Come and see. It's a dangerous calling, this life of discipleship. Those first disciples could have hardly imagined what they were in for. They certainly would have never predicted it would lead to the cross. You want to know who I am, what I'm about? Jesus asks. Come and see. Following Jesus meant having to get up and get out of their comfort zones, going to places unknown, taking risks. And as they would soon learn, following Jesus is often going to be uncomfortable. It means hearing the word and doing it. This weekend, as we remember Dr. King, Reverend Gretz, and all the civil rights leaders, past and present, it also means more than just confessing the sins of racism and oppression in the words of our welcome statement. It means actually acting on our words of welcome by the way we live, by advocating for justice for all people, especially the most vulnerable. Following Jesus sometimes means joining the trouble, Pastor Gretz later reflected, because it's the right thing to do. Jesus never promised that the life of discipleship would be easy, but it is everything. It is our baptismal calling, as we reaffirmed together last Sunday, to strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Come and see. Get swept up in the work of the gospel, because in that work is abundant life and liberation and beloved community. Come and see. It's not always going to be easy or feel good, but it is precisely there, in the midst of the trouble, that Jesus calls us to bring love and hope and healing to a hurting world. Come and see. 3 simple words, 3 dangerous words, 3 words that call us to go where Jesus himself has already gone and is, drawing near to those who suffer, standing in solidarity with those who are oppressed, proclaiming the good news of great joy that God is with us.